In 1998, Hyundai was a joke. Their cars were so bad that comedians used them as punchlines. 20 years later, they were beating Toyota and Honda in quality ratings. What happened between those two moments is one of the most shocking transformations in business history. Picture this: you're watching late-night TV in the 1990s, and the host makes a joke about cheap, terrible cars. Everyone laughs because they all know he's talking about Hyundai. That's how bad it was. Hyundai wasn't just struggling. They were considered the absolute bottom of the barrel in the car industry. Their cars fell apart, engines died, transmissions failed, paint peeled off, doors didn't close properly. If you bought a Hyundai, people assumed you either had no money or no clue about cars. It was the car you bought when you couldn't afford anything else. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane. Today, Hyundai is beating Mercedes, BMW, and Audi in design awards. They're winning quality surveys against Toyota and Honda. They're launching luxury cars that cost more than some BMWs, and people are actually choosing Hyundai over these legendary brands. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how a company went from being the butt of every car joke to becoming one of the most respected automakers in the world. And the way they did it involves a financial crisis that nearly destroyed South Korea, a crazy gamble that everybody said would fail, and one of the most brilliant marketing strategies ever created. This isn't just about making better cars. This is about completely changing how millions of people think about your brand when they've already decided you're garbage. Let's go back to where this story really begins. South Korea in the 1960s. The country had just been through a devastating war. They were one of the poorest nations on earth. Most people were farmers. There was barely any industry. A guy named Chung Ji-young started a company called Hyundai, which means modern in Korean. And modern was exactly what Korea needed to become. Chung was tough as nails. He'd grown up dirt poor, run away from home as a teenager, and worked every job imaginable. He had this insane work ethic and this belief that Koreans could build anything if they just tried hard enough. Hyundai started as a construction company. They built roads, bridges, buildings, and they were good at it. The Korean government was pushing industrialization hard, and Hyundai was right there, taking on massive projects. In 1967, Chung decided Hyundai should start making cars. Now, this seemed crazy. Korea had no automotive industry. They had no expertise. They had no technology. But Chung didn't care about any of that. He partnered with Ford to learn how to build cars. Hyundai would assemble Ford's Cortina model in Korea. They learned everything they could from this partnership: how assembly lines worked, how to source parts, how to manage quality. Then in 1975, Hyundai did something bold. They launched their own car, the Pony. It was designed by an Italian designer and used a Japanese Mitsubishi engine. But it was Korea's first domestically produced car, and it was actually pretty decent for what it was. Nothing fancy, but reliable enough and cheap. It sold well in Korea and even started getting exported to some countries. Through the late 1970s and 1980s, Hyundai kept growing. They were building their expertise, improving their manufacturing, expanding their lineup. And then in 1986, they made the big move. They entered the United States market. The Excel was Hyundai's first car sold in America, and at first, it seemed like a success. The price was incredible. You could buy a brand new Hyundai Excel for under $6,000. At a time when most new cars cost $10,000 or more, this was a huge deal. Americans who couldn't afford a Toyota or Honda suddenly had an option. College students bought them. People buying their first car bought them. In the first year, Hyundai sold over 150,000 Excels in America. But there was a massive problem that nobody realized at first. The cars were junk, not just kind of bad, genuinely terrible. They started falling apart almost immediately. The engines would die after 30,000 miles. Electrical systems would fail. The clutch would go out. Rust would appear within months. Consumer Reports The organization that tests and rates products gave Hyundai some of the worst ratings they'd ever given any car. J.D. Power's survey showed Hyundai at the absolute bottom of reliability rankings. People who bought Hyundais felt cheated. They bought these cars because they were cheap, but the cars were so unreliable that they ended up costing more in repairs than if they'd just bought a better car in the first place. Word spread fast. By the early 1990s, everyone knew that Hyundai made terrible cars. The brand became a punchline. Late-night comedians would joke about them. People would see a broken-down Hyundai on the side of the road and nod knowingly. The resale value was disastrous. A Hyundai would lose half its value the moment you drove it off the lot. Nobody wanted to buy a used Hyundai because everyone knew they were unreliable. Sales started dropping. By the mid-1990s, Hyundai was only selling about 90,000 cars a year in America, and then things got even worse. In 2009, Hyundai launched a completely redesigned Sonata sedan, and it was gorgeous, sleek, flowing lines, aggressive front end. It looked like something that should cost $40,000, not $25,000. Car journalists were shocked. This didn't look like a budget car. It looked like a premium car. Automotive magazines were giving it design awards. Then in 2010, Hyundai launched the new Elantra, another stunning design that looked way more expensive than it was. People started talking about Hyundai's design in a positive way. Car enthusiasts who would never have considered a Hyundai were admitting these cars looked good. But Hyundai didn't stop there. They also focused on making their cars more fun to drive. They hired Albert Biermann, who had been the head of vehicle testing at BMW's M division. This is the guy who made sure BMW was handled like sports cars, and they put him in charge of making Hyundai's cars drive better. Biermann improved the suspension, the steering, the overall dynamics of Hyundai's cars. They weren't going to outperform BMW, but they became genuinely enjoyable to drive instead of just boring transportation appliances. And here's where Hyundai made another brilliant move. They started being honest about who they were. Instead of pretending to be a luxury brand or trying to compete directly with BMW and Mercedes, Hyundai positioned themselves as the smart choice, the value choice, the car for people who were intelligent about how they spent their money. Their marketing started targeting educated, practical buyers who did research before buying a car. People who read consumer reports and compared specifications and calculated total cost of ownership. And for these buyers, Hyundai was becoming a compelling option. You could get a Hyundai with more features, better warranty, and similar quality to a Honda or Toyota, but for less money. During the 2008 financial crisis, when the entire car industry was collapsing and companies like GM and Chrysler were going bankrupt, Hyundai launched another genius marketing program. They called it Hyundai Assurance. If you bought a Hyundai and then lost your job within a year, you could return the car with no impact on your credit again. This was about reducing risk and building confidence. At a time when people were terrified about the economy, Hyundai was saying, "We've got your back." Sales actually increased during the recession while other car companies were dying. Hyundai went from a company people bought when they couldn't afford anything else to a company people actively chose. By 2010, Hyundai was selling over 500,000 vehicles a year in America. Their quality ratings from J.D. Power and Consumer Reports were rivaling Honda and Toyota. Some of their models were actually rated higher than comparable Japanese cars. This was unthinkable just a decade earlier. But Hyundai still had one major challenge. They were stuck in the middle. They'd escaped the bottom tier of cheap, unreliable cars, but they couldn't break into the luxury market. People would pay $25,000 for a well-equipped Hyundai Sonata, but would they pay $50,000 for a luxury Hyundai? Probably not. The brand baggage was still there. So in 2015, Hyundai did what Toyota had done when they created Lexus. They launched a separate luxury brand called Genesis. The Genesis brand was positioned as a direct competitor to BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. Luxury cars with powerful engines, premium materials, advanced technology, and sophisticated design. And critically, they were priced about 20% less than comparable German luxury cars. A Genesis G80 sedan cost about the same as a BMW 3 Series but competed with the larger 5 Series. People were skeptical. Why would anyone buy a $50,000 car from the company that made Hyundais? But Genesis understood this challenge. They didn't just make good cars, they made the entire ownership experience premium. Genesis offered free scheduled maintenance for 3 years. They'd pick up your car from your home or office for service and leave you a loaner. They offered a valet service where they'd debring test drives to your location instead of making you go to a dealership. They were addressing every pain point of luxury car ownership and making it easier and more pleasant. And the cars themselves were legitimately good. Car journalists testing Genesis models against BMW and Mercedes found them competitive. Sometimes Genesis actually won comparison tests. The Genesis G70 Sport Sedan won the 2019 North American Car of the Year award. Think about that. A Hyundai luxury brand beating out every other car launched that year, including cars from BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and every other established luxury brand. This wasn't charity or sympathy. The car was genuinely excellent. By separating Genesis from Hyundai, they created a clean slate. People could judge Genesis on its own merits without the baggage of Hyundai's past reputation. Meanwhile, the main Hyundai brand kept improving and growing. They invested heavily in fuel efficiency and hybrid technology. The Hyundai Ioniq became one of the most fuel-efficient non-plug-in cars available, competing directly with the Toyota Prius. They pushed into electric vehicles early. The Hyundai Kona Electric offered over 250 miles of range at a price well below Tesla. It became one of the best-selling electric vehicles in several markets. They launched a performance sub-brand called N, similar to BMW's M or Mercedes AMG. The Hyundai Veloster N was a genuinely fun hot hatch that car enthusiasts loved. Hyundai was covering all the bases: fuel efficiency for practical buyers, electric vehicles for environmental buyers, performance cars for enthusiasts, luxury cars through Genesis for premium buyers. And through all of this, they maintained their core promise: great value. You always got more car for your money with Hyundai than with competitors. By 2020, Hyundai had completely transformed their reputation. They were regularly winning quality and reliability awards. Their designs were getting praised in automotive publications. Their sales were strong globally. And then they made another big move into the future. They announced massive investments in electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell technology. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, launched in 2021, was a radical departure from traditional car design. It looked like something from a science fiction movie, and it had cutting-edge technology like ultra-fast charging that could add 200 miles of range in just 18 minutes. The Ioniq 5 won dozens of awards, including World Car of the Year for 2022, again, beating every other new car from every other manufacturer in the world. Hyundai wasn't just catching up to the competition anymore. In some areas, they were leading. Their approach to electric vehicles was smarter than many competitors. Instead of making electric cars that looked weird and screamed "I'm electric," they made electric cars that looked cool and happened to be electric. They understood that most people don't want to make a statement with their car. They just want a good car that happens to be electric. Today, Hyundai Motor Group, which includes Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia, is the third largest automotive group in the world by sales. Only Toyota and Volkswagen sell more vehicles. Let that sink in. A company that was a joke 25 years ago is now one of the 3 biggest car companies on the planet. Their revenue is over $100 billion annually. They sell nearly 7 million vehicles a year globally. They operate in over 200 countries. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The real transformation is in perception. Hyundai went from being the car you bought when you couldn't afford anything else to being the car you chose because you were smart and did your research. Young professionals buy Hyundais because they're stylish and practical. Families buy them because they're reliable and affordable. Enthusiasts buy the performance models because they're genuinely fun. Luxury buyers buy Genesis because the cars are excellent, and the ownership experience is better than the Germans. The transformation didn't happen by accident or luck. It happened because of deliberate, consistent decisions over more than 2 decades. First, they fixed the actual products. They completely rebuilt their manufacturing processes to focus on quality. They couldn't fake this. The cars had to actually be good. Second, they changed the perception through bold moves like the 10-year warranty. They gave people reasons to reconsider their assumptions. Third, they invested in design and engineering talent from the best companies in the world. They hired people who knew how to make cars that looked good and drove well. Fourth, they were patient. They didn't expect to change their reputation overnight. They understood it would take years of consistently good products to overcome decades of bad reputation. Fifth, they were honest about who they were. They didn't pretend to be something they weren't. They positioned themselves as the smart value choice, which was authentic and appealing. Sixth, when they wanted to enter the luxury market where their brand baggage would hurt them, they created a separate brand. They understood the limits of brand elasticity. Seventh, they kept innovating and pushing forward. They didn't get comfortable once they'd achieved respectability. They kept trying to lead in new areas like electric vehicles. The lessons from Hyundai's transformation apply to any company trying to overcome a bad reputation. You can't just market your way out of a quality problem. You have to actually fix the quality first. No amount of advertising would have saved Hyundai if their cars still fell apart. Bold guarantees can work if you can actually deliver on them. The 10-year warranty only worked because the cars were actually reliable enough to make it economical. Reputation change takes time and consistency. You can't expect people to forget years of bad experiences because you launched one good product. You need years of good products. Design matters more than people think. Hyundai's transformation accelerated dramatically when they started making cars that looked beautiful. People judge products by appearance, fairly or not. Understanding your positioning is crucial. Hyundai succeeded by being the smart value choice, not by trying to be a luxury brand. Genesis succeeded by being a separate brand, not by trying to make Hyundai itself luxurious. Hiring talent from better companies accelerates improvement. Hyundai's decision to hire designers and engineers from BMW, Audi, and other premium brands brought expertise they couldn't have developed internally in the same time frame. The Hyundai story is also a reminder that no brand is permanently damaged. Even when everyone considers you a joke, you can turn it around if you're willing to do the hard work. In 1998, if you told people that Hyundai would be winning Car of the Year awards and beating BMW in comparison tests within 20 years, they would have laughed at you. But it happened. Through crisis, through transformation, through relentless focus on improvement, Hyundai went from the bottom to the top. Today, when someone buys a Hyundai, they're not making a compromise. They're making a choice that often makes more sense than buying a Honda or Toyota or Volkswagen. The badge that was once embarrassing is now something people are proud to have on their driveway. That transformation, from shame to pride, from joke to respect, from financial chaos to global leadership, is one of the greatest brand turnarounds in business history. And it proves that with the right strategy, the right commitment, and enough time, any brand can change its story. Here's everything that matters. Hyundai went from making cars so terrible that comedians mocked them to winning quality awards against Toyota and Honda. They survived a financial crisis that nearly destroyed South Korea, then launched a quality revolution that completely rebuilt how they made cars. They introduced a crazy 10-year warranty that proved they believed in their own products. They hired top designers and engineers from luxury brands. They were honest about being the smart value choice, instead of pretending to be something they weren't. They created Genesis as a separate luxury brand when Hyundai couldn't stretch that far. They kept innovating in electric vehicles and technology. And after 20 years of consistent excellence, they transformed from a punchline into one of the most respected car companies on earth. From financial chaos to global leadership through quality, patience, and smart strategy. The story of how Toyota went from making terrible cars to crushing every American competitor through one simple principle is even more mind-blowing than you'd expect. In 1997, the Asian financial crisis hit. If you don't know about this, it was a massive economic collapse that devastated countries across Asia. Currencies crashed, banks failed, companies went bankrupt by the thousands. South Korea was hit particularly hard. The Korean won lost more than half its value almost overnight. Korean companies that had borrowed money in dollars suddenly owed twice as much in their local currency. It was a nightmare. Hyundai, which had expanded aggressively into all kinds of businesses beyond cars, was drowning in debt. They owed billions of dollars. Their creditors were circling. Bankruptcy seemed inevitable. The company was split up. Different divisions were sold off or made independent. Hyundai Motors, the car division, barely survived. They had to lay off thousands of workers. They closed factories. They were fighting for their lives. And in America, their reputation was so bad that many people thought Hyundai would just disappear. Why would anyone save a company that made terrible cars nobody wanted? But this crisis, as horrible as it was, created an opportunity because it forced Hyundai to completely rethink everything about how they operated. In 1999, a guy named Chung Mong-koo took over as chairman of Hyundai Motor Company. He was the son of the founder, but he wasn't just some privileged heir coasting on his father's success. He was an engineer who understood cars, and Chung Mong-koo made a decision that shocked everyone. He declared that Hyundai was going to become known for quality, not cheap cars, not affordable cars, quality cars. People thought he was delusional. Hyundai's reputation was in the gutter. They were known for the exact opposite of quality. How could they possibly change the perception? But Chung was serious, deadly serious. He launched what he called the quality revolution inside Hyundai. He brought in executives from Toyota to teach Hyundai about the Toyota production system, which was considered the gold standard for manufacturing quality. The same system that had made Toyota and Lexus so reliable. He invested billions of dollars in new manufacturing equipment, state-of-the-art robots, advanced quality control systems, testing facilities that could simulate years of wear and tear in just weeks. But more importantly, he changed the culture inside the company. At Hyundai's factories in Korea, he created a system where any worker could stop the entire assembly line if they spotted a quality problem. This was revolutionary for Hyundai. Before, the focus was on speed and volume. Get the cars built and shipped as fast as possible. Now, the focus was on getting it right. If a single weld wasn't perfect, stop the line and fix it. If a part didn't fit exactly right, stop the line and figure out why. Chung would personally visit factories and inspect cars. He defined defects and demanded to know why they happened and how they'd be prevented in the future. He made quality everyone's responsibility, from the top executives down to the assembly line workers. But here's the thing, you can improve quality all you want, but if nobody believes you've improved, it doesn't matter. Hyundai's reputation was so damaged that even if they made perfect cars, people wouldn't believe it. They needed to do something dramatic, something that would force people to reconsider their assumptions about Hyundai. In 1998, they tried something that had never been done before. In the car industry, they introduced what they called America's best warranty, 10 years or 100, 0 miles, whichever came first. To understand how crazy this was, you need to know that most car companies at the time offered warranties of 3 years, or 36,000 miles. Some offered 5 years, but 10 years? That was unheard of. People in the car industry thought Hyundai had lost their minds. A warranty that long would be incredibly expensive. Every time something broke on a Hyundai, the company would have to pay to fix it. Given Hyundai's reputation for reliability, this would cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. Industry analysts predicted this warranty program would bankrupt Hyundai within a few years. But here, that's what was brilliant about this move. Hyundai understood something important. They weren't really selling a warranty. They were selling confidence. Think about it. If Hyundai was willing to cover their cars for 10 years, they must be pretty confident those cars wouldn't break down, right? They wouldn't offer the warranty if they expected to be making repairs constantly. The warranty was a signal, a way of saying, we know you think our cars are terrible, but we Ray so confident in what we Ray building now that we'll guarantee them for twice as long as anyone else. And it worked, not immediately, but gradually. People who were considering buying a cheap car started thinking, well, even if it's a Hyundai, at least if it breaks I won't have to pay for repairs for 10 years. The warranty reduced the risk of buying a Hyundai. Some people took a chance. They bought a Hyundai Elantra or a Sonata, expecting the worst but hoping for the best. And you know what? The cars didn't fall apart. They weren't perfect. They weren't as good as a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry yet, but they were way better than the old Hyundais. They were actually decent, reliable cars. And the warranty barely cost Hyundai anything, because the cars weren't breaking down like the old ones did. The improved quality meant the warranty claims were way lower than expected. People who bought these new Hyundais started telling their friends, actually, my Hyundai has been pretty good. And that word of mouth was gold, because it came from real people who had been skeptical, not from Hyundai's marketing department. But Hyundai knew they couldn't just rely on a warranty to fix their image. They needed better products, much better products. In the early 2000s, Hyundai started hiring top designers from European luxury brands. They brought in people who'd worked at Audi, BMW, and Mercedes. They opened design studios in California to tap into American design trends. And they gave these designers freedom to create cars that didn't look like cheap knockoffs, cars that had their own identity and style.